on this planet here so long our past forgot, but our destiny's much more than anyone had ever thought. We raise our eyes to look afar and see the source of who we are out among the wild stars. Out where adventure awaits, the wild stars gonna meet a grander fate. Gonna leave this earth behind, where our true future we find out in the wild stars. Out in the wild stars.
Critical blast logistics, getting it done, getting it there. Critical blast logistics, getting it done, getting it there. The world has got you down, a smile on your brow. Put a little madness in your life. If life made you unashamed and comics are your estate, put a little madness in your life. Come give your mind a cleanse, tune in with pops and friends. Just turn on your Roku box and then put a little madness in your life. Put a little madness in your life. Yeah, yeah. Put a little madness in your life. At a cursed crossroads where souls collide, see the prince of darkness, see the prince of lies, while the world lies sleeping and the moon's aglow. They may meet with the devil, you know, when your heart is quaking and your soul can't rest. Open up the pages of the devil you know best. People face their demons as each tale unfolds, but the devil's in the details and their fate's been sold. Hear their fate's been sold and they're lost to hell. That's the deal you have to make with the devil you know well. It's a Critical Blast podcast. With our special guest, Michael Tierney.
Hey,
Hey, Michael, how you doing?
doing great. Great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
It's been a long time since we've sat down on the chats to talk here, and already fans are here. Mike is in the chat. Wayne is in the chat. Appreciate. We're gonna get you guys reserved seats. We're just gonna put your name right on the back. You can sit up in the front row and catch everything that's going on. Um, wow, we're both so busy, Mike.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's crazy.
'Cause
Yeah,
you've been doing this publishing thing longer than I have, and I'm like,
yeah, yeah. Independent myself. I started independent publishing back in '77 with the Multiversal Scribe magazine. 22 illustrations, like 7 different stories and 7 different genres. Did it all myself. I got frustrated right away at submitting stuff. I had a story published when I was, accepted when I was still in junior high and printed when it was in high school. And oh, they just butchered it bad. I mean, oh, it's such a disappointment to see the editors just go through. It's like, he doesn't need any kind of punctuation or indentation, and just make it like one big long paragraph. And ironically, it was the last. It's an element that will be from the last chapter of the Wild Stars, the big conclusion. So I really started my Wild
I
Stars.
have it.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, and so it'd be interesting for you to see how I'm going to work that into the big finale. And that's one thing I've been assuring the editor of a Kursova magazine, because I'm sold him on. Hey, I'm going to do this 12-volume story to tell this big saga, and I've got the ending. I'm not going to do a George R. Martin on you where I have to think of something still.
I'll get around to it. Let's rake in some money first from the Netflix series or the HBO series. Well,
Then we'll see what the movies do, and then I'll just go wander off and do something else. Now I've got a
Yeah.
concrete ending. I've had this thing mapped out, what happens in each volume, and each volume is unique. I mean, it's going to give you a different story, but when you read it all together, you're going to get this one mega saga.
Yeah, because you have characters from one that will appear in the other, and they may not be the main character this time,
Right. It's like right
but they're
now,
action material.
right now I'm writing a Wild Stars 9, which is explaining a missing gap of information. Because like in the first book of Wild Stars, the Wild Stars leave. They go off to another galaxy. And then they show back up right at the end of Wild Stars 3. Well, I've never explained. I've just kind of dropped tidbits of hints about what happened, that 200-year gap. This explains all that. And so it introduces a whole bunch of new characters. And, so it's a real important cog that I'm writing on right now. And so each volume accomplishes something major to advance the story forward. And it's one of these things, you started out with, mysteries and this and that, but you got to resolve them. But each time you resolve something, you create a new level of, what's going on with that? So it constantly grows it. And, it's like peeling an onion. There's always another layer and it just keeps getting deeper.
That's a sign, Wayne. That's a sign. Wayne has a book. It's called Like an Onion. We're going to be publishing that at some point. Now, the concept of the Wild Stars, when I try to explain it to people, the best I can do is compare it to Battlestar Galactica. Insofar as that, with Battlestar Galactica, the premise was that Earth was colonized by people from a far off place, and then they left and we were left behind, and we kind of forgot where we came from. Am I getting that backwards? Because I know that the Wild Stars is like this frontier territory of the galaxy.
All right, the basic starting concept of the Wild Stars is that 75,000 years ago, this mysterious character called the Ancient Warrior, you get his origin in book 4. So you get a lot of details about him in book 4, but you actually get his origin in 6, which is a hardcover that just came out. But that goes back a million years. But 75,000 years ago, he was on Earth, and he led. The Earth people were being wiped out by races living underneath the surface of the Earth, and the Ishla. And so he took them on an exodus to colonize the Wild Stars. And so every story we've ever heard of a UFO or space gods, that's just been Cuz coming by, hey, visiting. And that's where all that comes from. And what was amazing too, this is a concept that came up with back in the late 60s, after watching the first lunar landing, going, hey, space is about to become the next Wild West. Hey, Wild Stars. And I started writing them. And The Final Conqueror was my first story published. I had more in the 70s, and I've always worked on it. And so it's just one of those things that just continues to grow. But so that's the whole Exodus. That was the first big mystery to what happened. Why did they do that? What was the story behind that? And that was resolved in volume 4. And so it's just a constantly growing, expanding universe. Now it also has, I have a lot of subplots. A lot of things, frameworks in there that are not going to be immediately obvious to the eye. Like the first one, Volume 1, the Book of Circles, that is actually told in the form of a football game.
Yes.
Yeah,
Tell me that.
it opens with a whistle, ends with a gunshot by a man in a striped shirt. Then it goes into a brief sudden death overtime. And I also call it the time travel twice told, because I tell you this big old long complicated story, and then I repeat it in short form in the final chapter. So if you didn't get it the long form, well, here it is in a short form version. And but the overall Wild Star, basically, it's a love story, because as you learn in Wild Star 6, which the book edition just came out on that, and I've got a special offer on that for your viewers. What happened was he wasn't the only immortal, and it turns out there's this race of beings that came from another universe. When their universe died, they crossed over to ours just as this one was forming. There's a lot more to it than that, but that just kind of gives you the basic gist of it. And so they just him and another immortal child abandoned, and he falls in love with her, most beautiful woman alive, and but they get separated 1,000,000 years ago, and so he spent like 1,000,000 years looking for her. And so that's another subplot that's running in the Wild Stars, is his search, trying to get with her, and he rescues her from a black hole prison in Wild Stars 4, and then she doesn't want nothing to do with him. And so,
that was a lot of time wasted.
Oh, I know, exactly. It's a typical thing. The guy meets a girl, guy falls for the girl, chases after the girl. The girl takes all his gold, his house, his vehicle, just
Yeah.
and he's still crazy about her. So
Now you're going to have to explain at some point why he can live that long and why she's still living that long.
Right.
But everybody else is dying.
That's all due with their ancestor, because what it is they crossed over. See, they have their fuel back then. Like anything in the law of thermodynamics, you use something and it deteriorates it, entropy. But the fuel that they brought with them from their other galaxy, well, one, they became immortal, and because they're from outside of our galaxy, so they're not bound by our laws, and their fuel, exotic matter, instead of being exhausted, it expands, it increases. So the more you use the fuel, the more fuel you got. Problem is, it can explode on you if you get too much.
Yeah.
And so that creates
you got to drain the tank every once in a while.
Right. And then plus, too, you got to be careful what you do with it, because you've got all these other races out there. You let them get a hold of that, and then all of a sudden they're just right up there with you, being able to move fast throughout the entire galaxy. I mean, you got faster light speeds, you got teleportation, and also all of a sudden everybody be on the same level as you as they get some of your fuel. So there's there are so many levels to this thing. It's something I've been working on my entire lifetime. I'm sorry?
That's what the Atomics want to get their hands on.
Exactly, yeah. And they do.
You got the trifecta here, though. You've got space travel, you've got time travel, you've got dimensional travel. So
realities, even so.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get with the dimensional travel, was the alternate reality stuff.
Well, there's also dimensional stuff too. So that's another plot line. Then you have extra universal, and people wanting to cross over, and wormholes are a bad thing in the Wild Stars. You don't want to do that, because there's something waiting for a hole to open to jump into our universe. We don't want that.
Often it's a worm.
Yeah, this one is a couple thick creatures called Nethanyan. They get into our galaxy and they start reproducing. We're going to get wiped out real quick. Yeah. And they do get close a couple times. So,
Mike, you mentioned book 6, and that we have a special offer on that. It is the very first link below. There's some other links here that will take you to different aspects of the Wild Stars universe. There's a preview for book. It's 8, right? It's
8 is the one that just will start next month, in just a couple weeks, in the spring issue of Crossover magazine. Wild Star 7, the Gold Exigency, just wrapped up in their December issue, and so that will be assembled in a book form later this year. And Wild Star 6 was actually assembled into book form. It ran in the issues of the 2022 issues of Crossover magazine, and this is the one that gives you the origin of the Ancient Warrior. You will finally learn his name. That it's been so long ago he forgot his own name, and
that's old.
And you learn what's happened with the love affair with Phaedra. Just you get a lot of information. It's a very big expanse of the Wild Stars. In every book, the Wild Stars grows, and so it's a key one. And so when they did them, he released them. Crossover published this, and when they released them, did them in hardcover and paperback. And in January, he released them in mass markets. Now, on the paperback edition, you can tell the difference between the first edition Kickstarter offering by Kursova and the mass market edition because the mass market edition has a barcode.
Right.
But the hardcover, there's no barcode on that because that's something you buy from Lulu. So it didn't need a barcode. So what I did is I bought like a batch of like 25 copies of the first edition, signed and numbered them, and I've got like a 40th anniversary stamp because this is the 40th anniversary of the Wild Stars. And that's how long. That's just since That's just since I started using the trademark name. I've actually been publishing since 72 was actually the first story published, and so it's been going a lot longer than that. But actually using the trademark name Wild Stars on the cover of a book, that goes back 40 years. And so this is a special event. And so what I did is I signed and numbered that group of 25 on January 1st. Well, the mass market didn't come out till January 15th. So that right there tells you this comes from before. And then, of course, you've got my 40th anniversary stamp. So these 25 copies will be easily identified as the first editions. They're going to be the only ones you can actually easily identify as the first editions.
Well, you have a special deal with Book 6 running on eBay right now, which is the link below, the very first link.
Right.
Or Critical Blast. If you're watching the show right now, you're going to get a deal. Mike, tell them what they can get, Mike.
Well, in addition to this book being signed and numbered, first edition hardcover, unread and all that, you're also going to get a set of the Women of the Wild Stars trading cards. This is something that Kursova Publishing did for the release of in March of the Wild Stars 8, The Superior Griefs. And so you got these 4 beautiful women illustrated by one guy. I did the background. And, so you've got some details that Kursova wrote up about the different characters on the back covers. But that's not the real special deal. Everybody's going to get that who buys a hardcover. What your viewers are going to get, I've got it listed for $50, which is $10 more than what if you just buy the hardcover by itself directly from Lulu. So, of course, now this is not including shipping. But if anybody wants to write me and say, make an offer or, do an inquiry where I can reply with an offer. If they say, hey, can I get the Critical Blast discount? I'll let you have it at the Lulu price of $40. So I'm knocking off $10 for just your viewers. And so by doing it that way, if they watch this show later, they're not like, oh man, I missed the live show and I missed out on the deal. No, they'll still get the deal as long as I got copies.
All right. Well, so that's, don't just click to buy it now, folks. Contact the seller and say, can I get the Critical Blast discount? Get your $10 off of it. That's a 20% discount.
Yeah. And if they did by accident, hit the buy it now and go ahead and pay, I'll give them a refund if they just write me and say, hey, I'd still want that, the Critical Blast discount. Because one thing too about who does it first is I'm going to do these in numerical order. Right now, the next one sold is going to be number 3. And so, as you place your orders, it's going to march up to the 25. And so number 3 is the next number up.
Get those low numbers. These are the 4 cards here, front and back of the Women of Wild Stars. So can you, let's just go clockwise and tell us who we're looking at here.
All right. Well, the first one up is Rosetta Stonewolf. She will be taking on a new name in the Wild Stars 7 that just ran last year. And because she's in our timeline, she's part of the story that begins around 1994, and but in the 7, she makes a transition. It's a complicated story on why, but she makes a transition 200 years in the future to join with the other characters shown here. The one on the right is Daystar. Now she also was around in 1994, but she did time travel because the Wild Stars have that because they've got basically if you've got teleportation between planets, you're doing time travel because you're dealing with space. Oh, yeah. And so, she's already made the transition quite a while back to 200 years in the future, where she had a child with one of the ancient warrior's son. And her child is on the bottom left. That is Atlanta. Of course, they named her Mary, but then some bad guys who were pretty upset about what happened to him in Wild Stars 1 kidnapped her at the start of Wild Stars 2. And then they found out, well, if we rescue her, there's some things she did that if we take away what she did, Earth's going to be destroyed. So they have to wait till she's an adult to try to make contact with her. And so, that's pretty rough stuff. Your child is kidnapped and you got to let her be kidnapped because the consequences are too great if you try to rescue her.
For the greater good. Yeah.
Right. And then the woman to the right. Now, this is a complicated character here. Originally, she showed up as Scarlett Tanager, a ice cream heiress, and who's
Milk on the Moon.
what? Yeah, milk on the moon. Exactly. That's one of the catchphrases. They're like, "Hey, if you're on the moon, man, what would be like a delicacy? A drink of milk on the moon." So so she's the woman who runs a company called Whisper Ice Cream, which has a certain kind of juice in it that's highly addictive. And so, once you start eating this ice cream, you're just
That explains it.
yeah, I gotta have more. Gotta have more. And but then she's revealed later she's got pirate connections. So she's kind of like got a split personality. She's also known as the Red Queen, and of course some people call her by another name that rhymes with rich, the red. And so because she's ruthless,
Yeah, yeah.
really bloodthirsty. Yeah. And and she's telepathic, got skills, and she's got more powers than what the Daystar above her has. Rosetta upper left, though, she's kind of a wild card because she comes from an alternate reality where the Native Americans never fell. What happened was the immigration's coming over from the continents. The Irish came over on a longboat stolen from the Vikings and colonized the East Coast. Well, that kind of indoctrinated the Native American tribes to all the diseases from Europe before all the other guys showed up and just wiped them out with disease and warfare. So they kind of created a buffer where the Native Americans never fell. Well, then fascism rose in Europe. Well, there was no America to stop it, and so that's when the Wild Star stepped in, because what it was is these bad guys called the Broven had teamed up with the guys who are running the Nazis, and they had basically rewritten history to create this world because they wanted, hey, Earth to be allies of theirs. Well, so the Wild Stars kind of sent a time traveler back to undo what they had done. And when they did it, she was at the point where that happened, and she crossed over into our reality. And so she's, a big wild card in the Wild Stars, and the extent of her powers has still not been yet defined. I've got a plan for her, but that hasn't all been revealed yet. But whereas the Scarlett Tanager, what happened is the girl to the left. Now that Mira, the daughter who got kidnapped, boy, she had a rough go. First of all, she, they pick up the story with her where she's basically, wanting to get into space. Well, in the future of the Wild Stars, people, if you want to be a scientist in space, they go for people with disability, because you don't have to worry about muscular atrophy if they're already handicapped, don't have the use of their legs and this and that. And so, she goes on, she becomes like a maintenance worker just so she can get out in the stars. And, she's catching her ride on Mars when this event called the Force Majeure. Force Majeure is a clause in every contract. This is volume 2 of Wild Stars, where if Force Majeure happens, just drop everything and start running for your life, because all insurance policies, everything, all bets are off. You're just on your own. It's considered an act of God. And you're just out of luck. And so, but she gets blamed for it. And so she's pursued all the way back to this, the planet where her mother was born, Miri. And, so she's had a rough go. Well, she ends up being eaten alive by a thing called a red grief. Now, griefs are basically a tyrannosaurid type of creatures, because that goes back to, there's this group called the Morzanti. They've been doing terraforming by sending, this is wild. Remember what they call Uamawa or something like that, that big long rock that came through the galaxy a few years back?
Okay. I feel like Dune has less lore than the Wild Stars right now.
It really does. Yeah, it's a lot less complicated. It's a real simple story. Yeah, Sandy, hey, spice makes you see things. All right. But, so they, in my Wild Stars 2, years before that ever came through, I had posited that this race called Rosati, kind of an aquatic type intergalactic spanning species, had these long cylindrical rocks filled with bio information. They'd crash it into an ocean and rewrite the life on planets to fit their format. And one of the controlling lives that come out of that are what we call dire griefs, which is one of the tyrannosaurid species. And she kind of helped one of them escape back to their home planet Miri, where it came from. But then she was eaten by a red grief. Well, in Wild Stars 3, her son Bully Bravo, no, actually, her son, Bully Shawnee. Bully Bravo is his uncle. It's like there's a lot of characters. I've even got glossaries at the back of some of the books. Okay, here's who everybody is. Here's all these events and places.
Sounds like you need them.
Yeah, you do. You navigational charts, and but he managed to switch out the Red Queen with his mother, so the Dire Grief ate her, not the mother, and so that gets her back into the story. But guess what? The Red Queen starts showing up again. Now, what's going on with that? What that is explained and revealed in 8. I don't want to give too many of the plot stories, and but 8 is filled with a lot of shock moments. And even the editor Christopher said, "Yeah, I didn't see that coming." And so it's got a lot of surprises in 8. That's the one that just wrapped up in serial. So yeah, each volume has a major event and is a kind of a growth. And like I say, Wild Stars starts out and it just keeps getting bigger with each book.
So, I mean, 8, you're 2/3 of the way through the saga, because you're finishing book 9 now, which is 3/4 of the way. It's going to be 12 books. And I'm hoping at some point Alex has got to be thinking ahead on this. You release a 12-volume hardcover or even paperback where the spines just make one big contiguous picture of the Wild Star saga.
That would be cool. Now, one thing he has already done is he has done a omnibus of the first 4 volumes, and it has a beautiful wraparound cover by Anton Oxnick, and it's, as you can tell, it's a thick monster. But all 4
that's only 4 books of the series. That's big.
Yeah, and like it has in it the paperback editions. Here is the first paperback edition of the Wild Stars. And what we did on the paperbacks, we did something unique in that we had these nice covers by Mark Wheatley. And he had worked a back cover that when you combine all the different covers together, they make like a star if you put all 4 of them together. And so we went ahead and took what was originally supposed to be in his back covers. We just made them into virgin front covers. And then you have all the text on the back. So here's like volume 1. This is the volume 4 I was telling you about. Let's see here. Find them all.
Are those pictures available as a print or a poster?
No, I don't think they're. I'd like to do an art book one day because it got a lot of beautiful artwork that's been done on the series and going to be done. Here's the volume 3 Time War Armageddon I was telling you about. And I guess I didn't grab a 2. But wait, no. Here's the other one I did. This is the 3 here.
But that would be a great bookstore poster to have the 4 pictures put together.
Yeah, and then if you're out there collecting, they did do first editions of the 3s. 3 wasn't serialized in the magazine, but see, I published the 1 and the 2, and then originally, and then self-published. And then when Christopher started publishing with volume 3, they did like 3 different first edition hardcovers, all sold out a long time ago. And then when he went ahead and did the the big collection on the omnibus, he went ahead and reissued mine and then the 3, and then with the 4, which were released as book straight to book. And then starting with 5, he started running them serialized in the magazine, and then a book edition later. And so 5 was the first one that was run in the magazine, and then at a later time, released. And has a couple different covers. And there was also a limited Kickstarter offering on this one too. Nice cover by Dark Philly. And I think I've talked about this on the show. Can you tell there's an optical illusion between the front and the back cover? If I would put it side by side, you'd see it instantly. But this is the Red Queen character we were talking about. And so there's an optical illusion. I'll let people kind of wonder what that is. Like I say, you put them side by side, you know right away. And here's another cover for the volume 5. So yeah, he's been doing a great job publishing it. Really,
volume 3 was the first one that was a text novel, right? I mean, volume 1 was a graphic novel, and then you had Force Majeure and Prairie Bay.
And that one was 38 pages of comics wrapped around an 82,000 word novel. Ironically, they all started as novels. The comics I did back in the 80s was based on a novel I wrote back in the 70s called First Marker. And then I went ahead and I published those comics in the 80s. And then in the 90s, I wrote another novel called Under the Wild Stars. And I've actually got that, the original novelization, which has a lot of differences from the final version. But I actually have a 26 copy limited edition set of that offered on eBay. But I'm asking for quite a bit on that one because that goes all the way back in the 90s. And it's got some ideas I still haven't even used out of that one yet. And so that was like $400. And so I'm pricey on that one. But but Kurosawa, when they came along and started publishing with 3, I mean, he's just really done a fantastic job, helped get the word out. Here's the Wild Star 7 Gold Exigency. Now, if you wonder what exigency means, it's when you come up with a plan for an emergency situation. And when Phaedra got his ship and all his other, she also got all his gold, and she's got like an ocean of gold, and so she's devaluing all the gold. And so the bad guys, the Artomics, come up with a plan to reframe the financial base of their empire by using a certain type of gem that is actually grown on the skins of a certain species. And so they harvest all the gems off their skin, wipe out the people, and then they completely corner the market, and they don't have to worry about somebody else flooding it. So there's a genocide that they're trying to prevent in that one. So
you got creatures that are growing gemstones that you have to kill out so that the gemstones retain their value. So are you taking your throwaway characters from Wild Stars, like, okay, that's just too crazy for this, and putting them into your Edgar Rice Burroughs strips that you're writing?
Actually, that Edgar Rice Burroughs strip, I've got that all written. That was the idea that I pitched back. It was either 2018 or 2019 because I was doing the Edgar Rice Burroughs art chronology for all the publications ever made in connection with Edgar Rice Burroughs' entire career, from pulps to books to comics. And so I had pitched him this one idea, but this is a short story I wrote for completing a Burroughs fragment of Tarzan.
Right.
And but then Danton, the grandson of Burroughs, who hired me to do it, he died. And when he died, he took his knowledge with it. So, I was talking to them, and so we got this published. And so that I actually co-authored a Tarzan novel, an original one, with Edgar Rice Burroughs, posthumously, obviously. And but while we were dealing with all that, I was like, look, I'd really like to do a adaptation of your Beyond the Farthest Star stories. Matter of fact, Burroughs wrote 2 stories. And then another guy by the name of Lee Strong wrote a novel. And another guy, Todd McCaffrey, and McCaffrey's son, wrote a short story. I said, I'll just wrap them all together into one big story, and I'll come up with some original material to tie it all up and make it work, and come up with a big finale to wrap it all together. And I'm almost halfway through it. It's going to be 314 episodes altogether. I've already written them all. And so it's like...
So you're adapting what's been done into comic strip form and then putting your own original ending onto it all.
Yeah, new material in it and tying it all together. Yeah.
Were you tempted to have the ancient warrior walk through the back of a panel just for a Beyond the Farthest Wild Star?
No, I hadn't done that. No. But I am asking him. I said, well, I've got stories I can continue this on after I get this done. And there's other properties I'd like to work on too. So, they're like, well, let's we'll look at that later. Let's keep this one going for right now. And originally it was illustrated by a guy named John Lucas. He was a penciler and inker. So I colored the first 100 episodes. John left the strip then, and we had a kind of a 2-year hiatus while we're trying to find different artists. A lot of people were interested in doing it, but you just had to be a good match. And we got this guy, Silvestri Salagi. I mean, he's from Argentina. I hope I'm not butchering his name too badly because I'm just trying to sound out phonetically because I've only ever seen it written. We haven't ever met in person or talked on the phone or anything like that, all by email. But he is doing a fabulous job. This guy has illustrated thousands of pages, historical adventure. He used to illustrate the Mad King comic strip for a while. And so he can draw science, technology, you name it, he can draw. So he's a very experienced artist. And so he can take a complicated script that has all these scene changes and this and that, and he makes it look really good. But he does his own coloring, but it's fantastic. So I'm real happy with that.
Work on that strip is it's up there with Hogarth and Raymond as far as your serialized sci-fi pulp retelling goes. It's really good stuff.
Oh, thank you.
And where do where people get that is at the Edgar Rice Burroughs site. But what is that site?
Ed Rice Burroughs say, if you go to my Wall Stars, I've got a page where I put up a teaser sample for every new episode that comes out every Saturday. And so I put up a little teaser. And when I say teaser, I really mean teaser, because sometimes I'm telling you kind of what's going on. Other times I'm just making stuff up, just trying to get you curious enough to go, okay, what's really happening? And so, I put a lot of fun in there. But so I'll give you a taste every week and say, okay, don't you want to see the whole thing? Don't you know what really is going on? And so, I've got all those teasers for, I think we're coming close to 157 will be the halfway point. And I think we're around 150 something right now. So maybe it's only a few weeks away before we hit that halfway point. So that's going to be a big accomplishment to have that halfway done. And it's a lot of fun for me because Sylvester, I write complicated scripts. When I was writing my Wall Star scripts, it's like the cover artist, Frank Bruner, would call me up and say, hey, do you give as much detail and layout diagrams, everything like that, and backgrounds, everything? He says, do you give that much detail to the interior artist? So he was just asking me the same thing about you. I guess I make Alan Moore look lazy. And but that's the whole thing. I see the images in my head. I just don't take the time to draw it out. And I just when it came time to, okay, am I going to be an artist or writer? I went with writer. And art is just something you just have to really dedicate yourself to get to be top notch. And so I've always worked with art. Matter of fact, I did the cover for the Wall Stars 6 hardcover. That is my work there. And Photoshop, all that coloring, I wanted to do. Hadn't done anything in a while, so I wanted to do that cover there. And when I get this Wall Stars done, I'm going to maybe try to get back into oil painting and some other stuff like that. I'll start pursuing my art again. But right now, I'm mainly focusing on my writer and trying to get this life's work done of this big Wall Star saga told.
Well, you put Wild Stars on the shelf for the longest time. I mean, you never left it, but no. When you took on the Burroughs art chronology, and then you went on to the Howard, yeah, it was that took up your life.
Each one of those big chronologies, it was a one-man band. I mean, the Burroughs one, it was something like 120,000 words and 7,000 images. The Robert E. Howard book was 360,000 words and like 12,000 images, 4 volumes. I mean, it's just, you put the two together and they weigh more than a bag of concrete. I mean, they're monsters. They're big, oversized, slipcased. And those were just like 2-year chunks of my life sliced out, doing nothing but that. But I got them done. And because each time when I signed a contract, they had a deadline. I've always met all my deadlines.
That's the key to being a successful writer, really. I mean, you read a lot of Marvel comics. You're like, it told a story I got from beginning to end, but why is he such a superstar? Why is he staying? You know why? Because he turned in stories on time to the editor.
I was on a cruise, I think it was 99 or 2000, and had dinner with Will Eisner. And he's kind of the dean of the comic industry. I mean, he created the Spirit. He was doing a lot of graphic novels where anybody else was doing graphic novels. And Will was telling me a story about when he was being an art teacher there for a while. And he had this one guy, and he really wanted to be a comic artist bad. And so every time Will would give an assignment, this kid turned in 4 of them. They were all crap, but he was just had the energy. And so at the end of the school year, the kid goes, hey, Mr. Eisner, do you think I got a chance? Do you think I can make it as an artist? And Will, he's a nice guy. He did not want to break the guy's heart and crush him. And he thought, well, I'll send him to a newspaper editor. Those guys are pretty blunt and brutal. They'll tell him the facts of life. And he said, well, try to get work at a newspaper illustrator. So the summer goes by, the new school year starts up. And then the kid shows up at his first class, and he's wearing a tie and a coat, and his hair's cut. And Will's like, yep, he went to work for his dad. That's where I thought he'd end up. And the kid goes, well, Mr. Eisner, can I talk to your class? Can I address them before you start? And Will's like, yeah, he's going to tell him you can't always live the dream. And the kid gets up there, points at Will, and goes, that man made my career. I got a regular 4 gigs a week, and just went on about how successful he's been. And Will sat back there going, you got work. But then he realized the kid was reliable. He turned all his work in. Didn't matter if it wasn't the best, you could count on him. And like you said, that just means so much. Yeah.
I mean, passable art is so much better than somebody who can't draw at all.
Yeah.
If it's passable, it's like, yep, that's a man holding an ice cream cone. I can see it. That's a horse, sure enough.
Problem with so much art nowadays, it almost looks abstract as people just get so bizarre. They just don't have the skills they think they have.
Well, I mean, we could spend hours going through, stuff that's made it into Marvel and DC Comics, and we're like,
Woo!
"Really? What?" Uh,
They've got
there
a higher level, but they've got a lower level than they've ever had before too.
Yeah, and that's speaking of comics, you're still running a comic store ostensibly on it's mail order with the customers you had at your brick and mortar. You had reached out to me a couple months ago about DC had not had a final cutoff order, final order cutoff.
Yeah, around the holidays, they went 3 weeks without taking any orders. I'm like, man, are they just shutting down, just not telling anybody officially? They did eventually start soliciting again, but their product line is so thin. I mean, it's like, wow, I'm glad I closed my store. So 5,500 square foot of retail space costs so much to keep going. And if you look at all the reports for last year, everybody's reporting like anywhere from 8 to 15% decrease in sales in comics and graphic novels. Graphic novels seem to have gotten hurt worse than even the comics. So you're seeing a declining industry. And I was seeing that happening with my store so much. I know there's a lot of people in the comic book industry gets mad when you say go woke or go broke, or go woke and go broke. But that's what was happening. I was seeing so much of an exodus of my customers said, I don't want this. I used to have cops, district attorneys, everybody, cops in all the different areas, military men all around the world. I was mailing mail orders out all around. I don't have any of that anymore. I lost every single one of those customers. And it's like the last guy to leave, he was in the Air Force. He goes, I'm tired of DC Comics telling me I'm a baby killer. And they've gotten so alienated by some of the direction of the comics. Now it's okay to make product for everybody, but that's the key: make product for everybody.
Quit. Don't change your one audience for the other one. Try to make something else for the other audience. But keep the one you got.
But the problem with comics is they've always been so monotone. I mean, just everything's the same. It's like when I first got in the industry. Now, it was a lot easier back then because you had all these ongoing titles. It wasn't all this miniseries after miniseries where you're just having to guess what your number is going to be. So that was easier to order for because you had a defined base. Oh, here's how many people like this. Here's how much sells off the shelf. I know what to order. And but then along comes Alan Moore and Frank Miller, and they pushed the envelopes. And what happened is all the comics were all ages back then because they were made to be sold on news racks that said, "Hey kids, comics." So everybody said, well, hey, let's do mature. Well, they were ignoring the mature market. They needed to make product for them. The problem with it all became mature. Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, there for a while, Marvel was hiring out their all ages materials to another publisher because they'd forgotten how to do it. And but they were still putting these things on racks that said, "Hey kids, comics." And I'll tell you what, they got told in the South in every Walmart because there was an issue of Spawn where a Walmart heiress is going into the big Bentonville office up there in Arkansas, and the headquarters of Walmart, and so she buys her nephew a comic off the rack. It's a Spawn comic where you have child abuse in it. When she realizes what it was she bought, she thought, "Hey, comic, it's okay." It said, "Hey, kids, comics." It says right there. She realized what she bought. Man, they just all of a sudden comics were branded obscene, and so you got pulled from all the different stores, 7-Elevens, grocery stores. So all of a sudden comics just went away.
People goes Walmart, so goes the rest of the industry.
Right. And so that's the whole thing is they weren't competitors to me, but they were I see the article, you have people closing down, yeah. And I tried to offer some people advice. They're like, "Oh no, we don't want to do mail order." Like, okay, whatever. But why abandon all your customers? But the whole thing, when you pull, those were places that exposed people, introduced people to products. They got interested, then they came to me to get the real thing. So I grew when I had lots of competition. Competition was not a bad thing; it was good. And when they got pulled from all those places, all of a sudden comics just they forgot about them. Well, then along comes they want to do digital comics. And Marvel DC figure, okay, once we do this, every comic book store in America is going to collapse like a chain of tire record stores when music went digital. But what happened was our sales increased. And they're like, "What? What are you guys still doing? We thought you'd be gone by now." And but what is they were advertising. And so they weren't advertising for the retailers. They never did do that. But they were advertising about the digital. People are like, "Oh, hey, they still make comics? Well, let me go find the real thing." And then they came to me, and sales grew for all the stores. That hasn't lasted for a while. The whole digital thing's completely blown over. People are going to do digital, already doing it. People who are print, they're always going to be print. because print will always have collectability. Digital will never have that.
And they have to destroy the collectability if they want to destroy the market in order to
Uh-huh.
replace it with a digital market.
Yeah.
And it won't be the same.
Yeah.
I was interested in seeing somebody did a review that I was shown today of the Wonder Woman coloring book, an adult coloring book, not adult, but it was like, you've seen these adult coloring books.
Yeah.
And every time she turned the page, she was like, here's a picture of her like standing on a Roman helmet. I don't remember her fighting Romans on the television show.
Yeah.
Maybe she did time travel or something. It was just, but it was like everything that she knew about Wonder Woman came from the television show, not the comics.
Uh-huh.
And it's just like, a lot of people are familiar with the characters and forget that they're comic book characters.
Well,
because they were superhero TV shows.
Image, I bashed on them for the Spawn, so I'll give them credit, kinda, for The Walking Dead. That brought in a lot of people. Walking Dead comics. That was a phenomenon. But whenever they mentioned it, it said based on the graphic novel, not the comic. So people go to the Barnes and Nobles, all the big bookstore chains looking for it. They weren't coming into the comic book store until they, got deep enough into it and say, oh, wait a minute, these were comics before they were graphic novels. A lot of people never got that far. Matter of fact, I even had one of the early actors on the show come in. He goes, yeah, I just landed this gig on some show called Walking Dead. They told me to go into a comic book store, maybe buy some books. That was the only people they ever actually sold comic books to was the actual actors. And he wasn't on, I don't think very far into the second season. They killed him off. And he had a bad death scene. 1 minute he was there. Next thing, oh, that big old spot of blood, that must have been him. And he was gone. So, but
well, yeah, I mean, you're fighting zombies. If nobody's dying, then it's
But I told him, hey, that's going to be a good gig for you. And the show did really well, but they didn't ever promote comic book stores. It's like, oh no, we don't want to do the comic. Well, graphic novels, yeah, baby. The bookstores sounded more prestigious than comic book store, like we were lowlives. And so there's been a whole thing about the publishing industry has never tried to lift up the comic book stores like they should. I mean, because you got all this product out there, movies, this and that, and it's just I was telling all the other retailers one time. I said on one of the group chats, I said, we should all be talking about our yacht race next year, because we should be so rolling in it, because we're dealing in something we don't have any competition, but it's just the demand's not there. I mean, it's just there's the interest is there, but it's not being communicated to people where to go. Now, I used to do, as you know, I probably did a lot more advertising than most any comic book store in the country, because I was always on television. I mean, I was hitting it early. I was hitting the X-Men cartoon show. I was hitting Star Trek Next Generation from the very first episode. All those shows, Babylon 5, Highlander, anything that was related to the comic industry, I was on the ads with. And to me, it was like doing surgery on advertising, because I could just go in with a scalpel and just cut right to where, hey, my customers are going to be watching this. It's not like when you advertise in print, where you're just scattering it to everybody who buys that publication, and you're hoping maybe 1% of the people might actually be interested in your stuff. So I knew how to buy television advertising too. And it's just, you got to promote it. And that's why I had my stores for like 40 years, 2 locations for 30. And then when the pandemic came, I was like, I just don't like what the publishers are doing. They were chasing my customers away. At the time, Diamond was killing me, because I was being shipped out of Sparta every week, 15 to 25% damages and shortages on shipment days.
Only 15?
That was a good week. Yeah. And I mean, it was killing my sales. I was seeing a constant decline in sales. So they're chasing away my customers. I couldn't get my product. If I'd had my stores with the distributors where they're set up now, I probably never would have gone out of business. But as it was, it's probably a good thing that it worked out the way it did, because the way the whole industry, the sales, everything declining, I got out. So it's one of my employees said he kept expecting to come in my store someday, see me on the floor with a heart attack, have a stroke or something like that, because it was just so stressful, so expensive, and you're carrying payroll and all these expenses. So my sales obviously took a huge cut when I started doing mail order, but my overhead had an even bigger cut. And so I'm actually more profitable just operating as a home-based business than I was with 2 stores in 2 cities and 5,500 square foot of retail space. I mean, I was established. I was the guy in the state, but I actually make better money now by just doing it at my leisure.
Now you talked about how the comic sales were down, and that now even the graphic novels are down, which follows because what are the graphic novels? Well, they're usually collections of the comics, and if the comics didn't sell, why in the world would the graphic novel sell? It just comes later. So you can predict that decline to come out. It might take a little longer to hit the whole market because graphic novels include a lot of other collections that go back even further. But as more of this unsellable comic becomes unsellable graphic novel, it just expands into that slice of the pie.
And this is another example of how hard it is to be a success in this industry, but how hard it is just to get Marvel and DC to listen to you as a retailer. Like in 1984, 85, Dark Knight had just come out and they put it into a graphic novel. Then they'd collected well, actually, they hadn't collected the Crisis on Infinite Earths, but I had collected a lot of series like Crisis on Infinite Earths, a lot of different little mini series. And so I'd had before that Dark Knight had happened, I'd been making my own graphic novels. And so I went to a retailers conference hosted by Capital City up in Madison, Wisconsin. I said, this is 84, 85. And so I was showing to Marvel and DC. I said, look, I got two questions for you. One, are you guys going to sue me for making these things? And they're like, oh, when you repackage them in your store, you put them in a plastic bag, that's repackage them. However you want to repackage in your store, we're fine as long as you don't advertise it on a national level. I'm like, okay, I'm good because I sold them as fast as I could make them. And I said, okay, well, my second question is, why don't you guys make these things? I can't keep them on the shelf. They just sell as fast as I can put them together. And both Marvel and DC looked at me and said, there will never be a market for reprint collections. And they tried it with the Dark Knight, tried it with the Watchmen. Both are still in print today. And and that was also a problem though, because again, the industry
they had so little faith in it. They had so little faith in it that they didn't bother to think about the possibility of a second printing. So,
right. And Alan Moore and Frank Miller were getting first print money on those things. Still are.
Still today. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to Bob, I can't think of his last name, but he was the editor of the Batman back in the 90s. And he said that in the 90s, Frank Miller was their top paid freelancer. He did no work for them in the 90s. It was just all Dark Knight first print money on all the graphic novels. And Alan Moore, he got mad because he's like, well, I was supposed to get the rights back once it went out of print. But they just shafted me and they've kept it in print. Dude, you're getting first print money the whole time.
They just keep earning money.
Yeah, you got a sweetheart deal you couldn't have asked for, but it wasn't the deal I wanted. I didn't expect it, so I'm going to be mad about it. So that's Alan Moore. He
wanted the rights back to it. What was he going to do? Sell his own copies of the book out of his basement? They're selling it for him.
You won the lottery. Well, it wasn't the number. It was a different number than I thought I picked. And well, then you wouldn't have won the lottery. Exactly. People are doing sometimes. We've all got our focus. This is what's important to us. And Alan, he was born and raised on a corner where I think they assembled like 5 crusades. And so he's got that crusader mentality. It's time to go to war. And still today. I mean, he did great work. It's just a shame he's not doing it anymore.
Is he not doing anything though? I mean, I thought he was just doing stuff so esoteric nobody wanted to touch it.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, nothing for the comic book industry. It's like
he did that Lost Girls book, which was like really controversial.
And it said right there, it's it was pornography. Well, I was zoned, in areas where it was illegal for me to even have it on the premises. And people would come in, hey, can you order that for me? I can't even have it in the store, So, and people are like, well, you need to fight the laws. Like, no, I'm close to schools. I'm close to churches. I understand what's important.
I don't like this law.
Yeah. I said, I don't need to fight it because I had already decided I wasn't going to carry X-rated material in my stores because I wanted family-friendly stores. And so people are like, well, I want you to fight this because this is a battle I want to see fought. I was like, then you fight it. I'm happy with it because I didn't want to carry it in the first place. So I don't have a problem with it, and I don't have
enough laws.
Was that?
You fought enough laws in the State House, when the libraries were coming through and trying to ban books.
Oh, yeah. I fought censorship for sure. Yeah. I've got to Act 858. They passed a law that basically said anybody complains about the content of a book, then you broke the law retroactively.
Yeah.
And I wrote an open letter to the legislature. Like, well, okay, I guess you better start locking the doors to all the church bookstores because there's this thing got the Bible. And I'll tell you what, it's got some wild stuff in it. And they're like, okay, we quit. Never mind. We won't enforce the law. And it just went away. But now it's back.
What David did with this Bathsheba chick? Man.
Yeah, exactly. But the law's back. I haven't heard what's happened now. They passed another law to basically a store clerk or librarian And it's all to keep anything considered too mature out of kids' hands. And so if a kid gets a hold of something, even if you don't know there was that content in there, it can make it a felony offense. So they did pass the law. I haven't heard about it being enforced yet. A lot of people trying to fight it and sue on it. I was trying to make everybody aware of it, try to keep it even from being enacted. Even talked to my congressman when I was up in Washington, D.C. I'm on the city council for where I live. And so I was up there in Washington, D.C. I was like, look, you know what they're doing back here? And they're like, oh, well, yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. That'll take care of it. Like, that didn't take care of it. Nobody will ever want to help you on stuff like that.
I mean, somebody knows what's in those books that are coming into the store. It may not be the
The
clerk behind
publisher.
the counter. He shouldn't be the one responsible, but somebody bought those books knowing what was in them.
Yeah. And, the publishers, they're like, hey, banned in Boston, store gets closed down. He loses livelihood. Oh, we get a boost in sales. Like, yeah, but I'm not going to lose my whole life. So you get a boost in sales. No, that's not right. To me, it's like, let's go after the publisher, go after the writer, go after the people who made it. Quit punishing the clerk on the front lines because they didn't know because they slipped something past you. There was something pretty major in those Conan comics from Dark Horse that I didn't even know about because I wasn't even reading them. I didn't particularly care for what Dark Horse was doing with them, and because they were going to go more for the blood and the splatter, and whereas the Marvel kind of with the sword and sorcery, and so I just collected them all, threw them in a pile, and then when I'm writing it up, I'm talking about, hey, Joe Lansdale and I have something in common. We've both written pastiches for Robert E. Howard stories, and so we're a unique club of two. So, I'm starting out how I'm praising this guy. Then I start reading the story, and I don't know. They just say, hey, let's get somebody busted and thrown in jail or what. I'm amazed that this has never happened. I kind of put out the alert like, hey, if you're a retailer, this is in your 50-cent bins, get it out of there. Whatever you do, don't put it in the mail. Oh, my God, because you lose everything. And I mean, it had some scenery in there that, even Playboy and Hustler didn't go that far. Yeah, I mean, it was the definition of pornography. And I was like, wow.
But I think the shock value is probably worn off on it now. I mean, because the more shocking stuff is in the stuff like genderqueer, where it's just, we're not even making it an analogy. We're not even making it a metaphor. It's just, here's an instruction manual.
Yeah, and I think somehow some books like that got sent to schools, underage kids, that was inappropriate for them, and that's why the whole law thing got started. So the thing is, you've got to practice responsible retailing, and you won't have these problems because people always overreact, just like the publishers overreact. Oh, we're all ages, no mature. Okay, now we're all mature. I mean, it's one extreme to another. The pendulum just swings, and that right now it's like, okay, we're all going to go.
Easier.
The politics on the comics now and the whole woke and diversity and, like, hey, I just want a good story and an adventure and I don't want to have to listen to your politics.
Yeah. I mean, it's just easier to say we're all mature or all ages. You see it with YouTube. If you've got a YouTube channel like I've got, you can go in every time you make a live stream or every time you upload a video and you can say, is this all ages or is this all mature? Well, if you're doing a live stream and you said, hey, I'm an all ages show, somebody drops an F-bomb, you're like, oh, got to go back and edit my video. It's just easier to say we're all mature. Now I never have to go check anything because if somebody says something, we can just be like, hey, we said. Even if it's if your content is Richie Rich for 99 episodes and then suddenly it's Sin City for episode 100, you're covered.
Yeah. I remember when I was first pitching my Wall Stars novels because I was circulating the novels around different places, publishers up and down Fifth Street. Because used to, if you didn't have a Fifth Street publisher accept your novel, you just didn't get to the bookstores. It was a whole different world than it is now, where you've got so many different avenues of access. And they were always saying, "Oh, your books are too edgy," and they're not any less edgy than they were back then. But it's just everything else has gotten so much edgier up, and the levels, this and that. And I would describe my work as any more than young adult, PG-13, and more to do with violence. I don't have bad language in my books, so I keep the language clean. And to me, that was whole thing. Another problem I always had with comics is I remember Garth Ennis, excellent writer. He would do these historical stories. And I remember reading one of his little 4-issue miniseries about German pilots fighting on the Russian front. And I'm like, why are they all talking in British slang? And it was the same thing with, all these, when he'd write, curse words, I had a preacher and he was everybody cursed with the same slang. And when I was on that cruise, it was the comic book legal defense fund cruise that I was on, where I met Will Eisner and a lot of other great people. I had beer with Frank Miller. I mean, just talked to all these great Neil Adams, all these different top-notch guys in the industry. And I finally realized why everybody cussed the same way. You'd have a longshoreman cussing the same way as a preacher, because it was always the same language. It's like, that's not being creative. That's just, they were talking like themselves. That's the language they use. So, everybody talks like us. Like, well, that was confusing me. I'm like, are these guys British secret agents hiding in a German unit? Is that why they're, is that why they use all this? Hey, yeah, bloody wanker. Germans talking like that?
Put an asterisk next to all the word balloons with the text box says, as translated from the German.
But that's one thing. When we were young, they had those cuss words in there, but they used this technique called X exclamation mark, all these signs. You fill in the words. So you would fill in the words that would probably be a lot more appropriate than what the writer was going to put in. And to me, and it was still accessible to kids. Oh, well, they're cussing. Yeah, I'm not telling you what the cussing is. Fill in the blanks yourself. That's what made Alfred Hitchcock such a great director. He didn't show you the knife going in. He just showed you the knife, the curtain, and blood in the bathtub. Let you fill in the blanks. So, there's ways to do it.
In the panels.
What's
if they're done right. That's what comics does in between the panels if they're done right.
Exactly.
The story's told by the reader.
Let the reader fill in some of the blanks for you there. So it's just being creative. And I don't see a lot of the creative stuff. I mean, that's another problem with the comics right now. It's like, one of the things I was so glad that when I went to becoming a mail order, I no longer had to read that previews magazine. Oh my God, the same concept over and over and over and over. Hey, we're going to have a new superhero group. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Gone. And, just nothing original, nothing new. I mean, when I first started out, you had a lot more creative, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. All right, back then, the major food groups in the comics were teen books, Teen Titans. Then mutant books were real popular. X-Men. Ninjas were popular. You had the Hand in the Frank Miller's Daredevil. And then Turtles, Donald Duck, and the set. They took the four major food groups and made them into one book. That was crazy. I thought, I'm going to order that just because it sounds crazy enough to succeed. So I carried it from the first. And so it's just, they were creative. Try something, do something different. Quit repeating and copying what other people have already done.
Devil Flyer Rex, the Jim Aparo adventure stories of the Spectre were my favorite. Because
those were good, yeah.
Back at that time, Jim Corrigan was dead. He was a ghost all the time.
Uh-huh.
Even as a cop, he was. And I remember the one where he's like, why do I have to be dead all the time? And God's like, okay, you don't have to be dead. And didn't get Jim's attention to tell him this. And what's Jim do? He goes out and gets himself shot and killed. It's like, well, that didn't last very long because he didn't know he was alive again.
Yeah.
He just, changed form and he was the Spectre, but he was always dead. I remember he's in the car talking to his girlfriend. He's like, we can't have a relationship. Look, I'm not even fogging up the windshield. There's nothing happening here. And then it became like, well, no, Jim Corrigan's alive. He's the host for this Vengeance of God thing. Like, no. He's a dead cop who's allowed to come back and fight crime.
Some guys can rewrite and reinvent a character and take it to another level. Other people just, okay, well, we're going to take the wheel and we're going to square it out. What do you mean it's a clunker now?
Yeah, exactly. So Wild Stars 9, first chapter of the serialization is going to be in Kursova magazine. What day is that hitting?
That's going to be March 15th. You'll be able to order it. You can pre-order the Kindle right now, but they won't actually offer the print for sale until March 15th. Now, you can buy it in both hardcover and paperback. Now, the hardcover is only available on Lulu. However, the paperback is available both on Amazon and Lulu. It costs more to buy on Lulu because it's on better paper. Okay. Because Lulu does better fulfillment, better packaging, and they use higher quality materials than what Amazon does.
Well, yeah. So go to Lulu or Amazon. You're better off going to Lulu. Look up the Kursova magazines and get this issue. You've seen the cover on our. Look for all of them actually. Yeah. This is Wild Star 6. This is the eBay version below. If you click on that, ask for the Critical Blast discount. You will get $10 knocked off of that price. That's a 20% discount.
And if you want to go, here's what the paperback looks like. Ant Knoxduck, who did the cover for the first appearance in the of the book in Kursova, he did a brand new cover for the paperback edition. So got
Right.
new covers on both of them.
And I've got to re-edit the video trailer we ran at the beginning for The Devil You Know Best, because it's no longer coming soon. It's coming soon. It's coming very soon now. It will be available for purchase next Tuesday, March 5th, is its on sale date.
And on that opening, you surprised me. Something Out of the Wild Stars. Where did that song come from? I never heard that before. I liked it. Like, wow, a Wild Stars song. That's cool. Did a good job.
I'll get you that.
I'd like that. Yes, please.
All right. Mike, thanks so much for coming on and
always
talking Wild Stars with me again here. I missed the days when we did the LCS guys show, but I think it got to the point where there was nothing happening anymore.
It got to be just you and me every time, and then like I say, the comic industry is just not a lot good to report other than wow.
Now, if you look at my just look at my channel. The last video I did, I actually was at Dave's store in Illinois at Cosmic Comics, because I had to interview somebody, and it conflicted with my travel plans. I'm like, I'll just do it from Cosmic Comics. So
there you go.
Dave's there. His store is he's becoming a bookstore because comics aren't selling.
Right.
The new comics. He doesn't have a new comic section anymore, really. He's like, if you want new comics, tell me what comics you want, pay me, and I will order them for you.
You know, the comic industry's always suffered from a schism from the East and West Coast, the coast compared to Mid-America. Mid-America has different values, taste. The comics used to be targeted at Mid-American values. Now they're more targeted for East and West Coast. Maybe these do sell better there, but they're just wiping out the sales in Mid-America. I mean, they're not meeting the criteria. And that's the whole thing is like, you can make something for everybody. I'm not saying stop making that. I'm just saying make something for the other customers that you've just abandoned.
I'm trying to get into the new comics still. I keep waiting. And I've always been a DC guy, so that's where it's going to end up being. I've had some enjoyable reads from Jeff Johns. He's kicked off that whole Golden Age feel again with the New Justice Society, the Stargirl and the Lost Children. They brought back all the lost sidekicks. All the Golden Age characters used to have sidekicks, and some of them didn't work out, so they quit writing them. Well, Jeff Johns does what Jeff Johns does and says, wait, they didn't just disappear. Something happened to them. Where are they at now? So even Jay Garrick's daughter, which, no one realized he had, because she would come and visit him from the future. He's like, well, where'd she go? She's back. The new Jay Garrick comics, those are fun, great reads. But, the one they got going right now is in the new Batman series, they're doing Joker Year One, which should sell in the bajillions, and would if they were telling Joker Year One. But they're going back and forth in time with this some far future story setting of the world has become Jokerized with some Joker virus, and Batman's pretty much on his own, trying to fight it and stop it all from happening. But it's too late. It's The Walking Dead with Jokers.
Yeah. The Joker is a character.
Flashback to the Year One.
The Joker is a character that my customers have lost interest in. I mean, back in the '89 Michael Keaton movie, Jack Nicholson as the Joker became it went from 50-cent table material to $50 material. I mean, just overnight it got demand, and it stayed for a long, long time. But they pretty much squeezed the life out of it. People have just lost interest in what to do with the Joker. They just don't connect with it anymore. At least my audience.
The Joker used to be different crime every time. It was like Joker themed. It was like, what's he want? He's going to do something jokery to, get his objective. Now he's just a chaos agent. He just shows up to kill people. That's all he does.
It's just brutal. Yeah.
Yeah. He's just a wandering serial killer.
Yeah.
And that's why Harley Quinn's more interesting, because Harley Quinn has become what the Joker was. Only now they're trying to make her a good guy, and who I can't follow it anymore. It doesn't make any sense. They're trying to redeem female villains. Look at the female villains in Batman. You've got Catwoman, who's always been kind of on the line, but she was a thief most of the time. But because Batman's in love with her, well, let's bring her over to sort of the side of the angels. You got Poison Ivy, who was always an eco-terrorist, but she's an eco-terrorist, so she's kind of good, so let's bring her over. You got Harley Quinn, who was, a psychotic sidekick, but, she was an abused woman, so let's bring her over. to the side of the. So you don't really have any evil women in Gotham anymore. Talia al Ghul is probably the closest, and even she is like, hey, I'm kind of skirting the line here because, oh yeah, I'm the mother of your child, Batman.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I remember when that was a controversial thing. People were like, "Oh no, that one can't be real," but it was. Yeah, Son of the Batman.
yeah.
That was a
Well,
hardcover book.
and I've got that hardcover, and I was like, I'm waiting for this kid to show up. And then, of course, when he does show up, Grant Morrison's like, I knew he kind of existed, but I didn't read the story, so I just made one up, which involved, Batman being drugged and raped, because that was why it was right there. You just had to pick it up and use it. But
Research. Do your research. Yeah,
yeah,
I think
wasn't
mainstream Marvel comics, DC, and like that, I haven't read them in years. The last DC book that I read on a kind of regular basis, and I guess I'm going to have to stop reading because they're going to stop making it, is Mark Willingham's Fables. I never cared about Fable. I never was a fantasy guy, but I liked what he did with the Fables. He really did a good job with it. The story had twists and turns.
Bill Quinn.
Once you thought you knew what he's going to do next, he'd throw you a curveball. That's good writing. I just don't see good writing in a lot of this stuff. It's so predictable. You just know what's going to happen. It's like by the numbers. It's a repetition of stories you've already read. I mean, you can only read the same story so many times before you're like, yeah, I know. Yeah, look, I remember one time I got a criticism on my Wall Stars comics when I put them out as a regular comic format. And this is what was all gathered into the Book of Circles. And one guy wrote a negative review about me that I loved. He goes, I didn't know what was going to happen after the first page. That was a criticism.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not writing for you. Yeah. You want one where you look at, everything's going to happen before it happens. You want writing by somebody else. I'm not going to give you that kind of stuff. I'm going to try to give you something.
Exactly.
I'm going to throw you some curveballs.
I want to be, expecting something unexpected as I turn the page every time. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, you think you're doing this, and then you do that. Yeah, I do a lot of misdirection and set you up on different ways. And I remember another reviewer I liked. He goes, "Yeah, Tierney always pulls the rug out from underneath you in a good way."
Yes, catches you on a pillow. All right. Everybody in the chat, thank you guys so much for being here. We do appreciate you. Hit the links at the bottom of the screen here. If you're watching on replay, get out to eBay. Remember to do the contact the seller. Ask for the Critical Blast discount so you can get the discount on the book. And then check out the preview pages, which will take you to thewildstars.com, where you can find out all about all the past books that Michael's doing, all the other work he's doing. It's a rabbit hole. Click the Wild Stars when you got a lunch hour to go digging around, because there's stuff in there you're not going to know. How did I get here? Why am I watching cosplay She-Hulk in a comic store? But you will be watching it. I guarantee you, if you click on it, you'll stay around for it.
You got my city council page on there too, so you can learn
he's in politics.
Yeah, how laws, how does government work? I explain it all.
All right. Guys, we don't have a show without you coming here to watch it. We're just a podcast falling in the woods otherwise. So thank you for being here. And as always, we just hope you had a blast. Good night.
I had one. Thank you.